privilege to introduce the talent from Saving Mr. Banks to you this afternoon. First of all, the director, John Lee Hancock.
Hey, man.
And then the screenwriter Kelly Marcel and producer Alison Irving. Congratulations to all of you on the film. I'm going to ask a few questions. I will throw it open to the audience. We have 30 minutes. I'm going to start with Emma because I just thought she was fabulous. Can I just talk about P.L. Travers? Emma, I assume when you were offered this role, you would think, well, how could I not take this?
Yes, I know, yes, absolutely. How could I not take this? We were all of us at my age going, oh, no roles were in at all. And then one of the best roles I've ever played comes sailing along, courtesy of my fine and extraordinary friend Kelly Marcel. She's the most brilliant writer. I mean, it was one of those, read the first page and go, I'm in, yes, okay, I'll do it. You don't have to pay me. They did. They insisted. But they paid me in chocolate and stuffed toys. About that. Yeah.
I'm delighted they paid you. Let me just move over to Tom Hanks. We can't keep you away from London, Tom. You know, you were here for the beginning, you're here for the closing. I think that's a record. Was there...
I've been sleeping in a sleeping bag behind a tea shop by the Circuit Town in Hyde Park for the last week and a half. Rain almost killed me. It is I'm sorry, I interrupted your fascinating question.
Was there any sense of trepidation for you in playing someone like Walt Disney?
Trepidation.
Does he seem to you like the kind of man that would experience trepidation in approaching a role? Sorry, I didn't mean. Was that for me or for Tom?
Believe me, hey, you got to act with a horse. I don't know what that meant exactly. No, my lovely wife Ruth Wilson, by the way. I'm not trying to dodge your question. I swear to God, I'm not. There was a responsibility. Let me put it that way, which is different than trepidation. It's without a doubt, it's a substantial gauntlet to throw down. I grew up where Walt Disney was ubiquitous in our lives as the Uncle Sam and Smokey the Bear and the combination of the President of the United States and Mickey Mouse himself. So I felt as though there was going to be quite a distance to go, and I had not a clue as to where to begin outside my own memories, and that led to a substantial. There's a lot of video out there. There's a lot of audio that you can listen to. Unfortunately, it's mostly Walt Disney performing as Walt Disney. So when you could find those moments where he's just talking in his natural cadence about something other than the new exciting realm of Tomorrowland, which will be opening at Disney, that was worth its weight in gold. And I had some access to that thanks to Diane Miller Disney, his daughter, and the fabulous museum that she has established in San Francisco.
Okay, thank you. John Lee Hancock next to me. How did you come to be introduced to this project, and once you saw it, did you think it was a no-brainer?
I was trying to set up another movie. I do adult dramas, and so it takes about 10 years to get them made usually. So I was trying to get another one set up that had fallen apart several times, and the script came across the desk for me to read, and I was told it was quite good, and I knew that it was about the behind the scenes of the making of Mary Poppins, and I thought, well, I like Mary Poppins. I'm not somebody that watches it every year, so I'm probably not the right person for this. And eventually my agent told me that I should definitely read it, if only for the pleasure of having done so. And I picked it up and was just enthralled again with Kelly's words. And I felt like, even though I'm, a Texas guy from a refinery town, I felt inside the story, and it was one that I desperately wanted to tell. Then I had to get the job, so I had to go in and pitch my take on it, talk about the movie, and thankfully met Alison Owen there in that meeting, and I got hired. I don't know how, but thank God.
I'm going to move to Alison next. Alison, I can't even see you. I'll ask you this question without looking at you. You're such a long way away. There's there's obviously a problem in making a movie about a Disney film, the Disney songs, about a studio, about a corporation. Did you expect a lot of problems from Disney, and were they forthcoming?
I think Kelly and I didn't know quite what to expect when we were developing the project, and certainly from its inception there was a question about, well, how much of the clips of the songs do we use, how much intellectual property rights are we going to play fast and loose with here? And Kelly at one time was like, well, do I tiptoe around them? Am I trying to use as little as possible, or do we just throw caution to the winds and make the best story that we can? And I think she was steering me in a certain direction, and I went in that direction and said, let's just go for it. And they're either going to let us do it, in which case we might as well make it the best it possibly can be, or they'll shut us down, in which case it doesn't matter how much or little we use. So Kelly set out just trying to write the best script she could and use all the material, and then we had a certain strategy in terms of approaching Disney, and luckily for us, the right people were sitting at the right desks and in the right chairs at that time, and I think Mary Poppins was blowing the wind in the right direction, and it went with favour, and Disney have supported this project and been absolutely smart and intelligent in their approach and in terms of letting us do the right thing by the movie, by the story.
Okay, so Kelly, was it your instinct to go for broke as well, was it, rather than try and be cautious and try and anticipate roadblocks?
Yeah, absolutely. I really felt like you couldn't tell a story about the making of Mary Poppins without using the songs and using Walt Disney and, just really throwing it all at the script. I would be disappointed if I went to see that film and didn't get to have a little sing-along. So I think we knew that that's what we were going to do from day one. And I think if Alison hadn't said, just go for it, not sure I would have known how to write it or known what to do with it. It was definitely my instinct to go mad with it.
Colin, it seems that, it's almost like you were in a different movie half the time there.
That sounds like a big insult. But I know that it wasn't. Please carry on. No, I know.
No, it wasn't an insult.
There's me being hopeful again. No.
Let me put it like this. I mean, there's a foreground story and there's a backstory, which of course is the story of Mr. Banks. And it seems to me it's just very different from any role I've seen you play. Did it sort of feel like a departure for you?
Anytime you kind of step into the fiction of another person's skin and you go from objectively perusing the script and the character's life into being a subject of the story, it's a departure. Like it truly is. But this was, I suppose if I was to look back at the chronology and stuff that I've done, it does feel a little bit more unique. And I think more than that being about the characters, that's about the sensibility and the sensitivity of the whole film. Just in reading it, sometimes you read things and you put them down and you get very analytical about them and you think about the dialogue, you think about the situation and the characters and you look at the whole story as a narrative. This defied any kind of analysis. It was just moving from start to finish and funny at turns. So I loved the character, but even more than the character, because through the years I just seem, I feel that it's really nice to be part of things that work and things that affect people. And so the whole becomes greater, than the parts that make it. Really, that becomes more apparent to me through the years. So I was like Emma. I mean, I literally did read the first page because it came down, and then we heard my voiceover. I was like, yes, it's my film. I'm in. And then I was like, what do you mean I'm not the protagonist? I'm a protagonist.
What do you mean? I'm Emma Thompson's father.
Yeah. So yeah.
I've
Thank
got
you.
one more question for anyone who wants to answer it, and I'll open it to the audience. Have any of you seen the film Mary Poppins since you made Saving Mr. Banks, and does it feel different now you understand the sort of backstory of it?
The first night we were all together in LA, Cole had us all over to his gaff and showed Mary Poppins. That's the last time I saw it, actually. And we all sat there marvelling at it and going, oh my God, look at this bit, and I've forgotten that bit. And then, oh my God, it's so long. Yeah, for days, it seemed. But it's extraordinary. extraordinary. I mean, it is an extraordinary piece of filmmaking.
In prep, Kelly and I went through how many times, scene by scene, just saying, is there some little twinkle we can put in this for people that are real fans of the movie that won't obstruct the plot or the tone of the theme, just little nuggets for people that are big fans, and so there are a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, there's quite a few. It was lovely.
Don't tell them what they are.
No, never.
I'll throw you open to the floor. Get any glasses. Yes, you.
Hi, mate.
Sorry, your glasses, Jarvis.
Hi, I've just got a question for Colin. I thought the performance he gave, particularly with the young actor Annie Rose Buckley, was immensely moving, particularly that father-daughter chemistry. I just wondered if you guys say like how you managed to get that. Did you talk with her first, or just your experience with filming with her?
Custard creams and a cattle rod. And I vacillated between both. A hug and then a punishment. No, she was incredible. I mean, I don't know how many actors or actresses are just small female human beings that John Lee and Alison may have met in Los Angeles, but I know they met many. And when they went over to Australia to research where Travers Goffin and the family were from, they saw a lot of young girls there as well. And I believe he went through, it was quite an ordeal to get her legal papers to work, wasn't it? But it was worth every single phone call and every single bit of sweat because she was phenomenal. And to work with her, it was just really easy. She was there with her twin brother Max, and her parents were over. And you know, our section of the film was such a it was such a pleasure that they shot in chronology and they blocked it off, so it was 2 weeks. So very much did feel like a film in and of itself. So for 2 weeks we went to a ranch about 350 acres, about an hour and a half's drive north of Los Angeles, scorched earth, yellow grass, bent over, and they built a lovely wooden house on top of this bluff, and it was just me and Ruth and the girls and 6 chickens and 1 horse, and happy days, man, you know. And that was it. You know, it was all there on the page, obviously, I should say as well. It was all there.
Thanks, one in the front row, followed by the gentleman next to him.
Question for the actors. It's a general question about acting linked to the film. How much input do you like a writer to have when you're playing in a film that's been written based on a book? And Tom, in particular, to your production side of it, I mean, do you really like the writer to get involved in the script writing, or do you like them to just hand it over?
Well, in this case, I was a hired gun. I didn't say anything that didn't appear in the script, and we had meetings in which we went over. I did have questions like there were some Americanisms that I think needed to be put in, and some things that I discovered that Walt had a tendency to say in imagery that he used, but that was all okay. We treated this, I think we could all agree, like the Gutenberg Bible. We were not allowed to mess around. We worked at the
we rolled a lot of joints.
Gospel according to. There are types of films that just define themselves, and that was, I think, always going to be the requirement for making this movie. It was an extremely well constructed, beautifully knit sweater, and I wasn't about to start pulling a thread loose and have it all fall apart.
It's miserable going on to a film with a script that's not ready. You know, really. I mean, Barry Sonnenfeld will tell you, we didn't have the third act of Men in Black until he started filming without a third act. I don't understand how to work like that.
I've finished films where the script still isn't ready.
Yeah. Thank you. So when you get something that Kelly's written, you know, it was so beautifully written. I added 1 line, I think, on just off the bat, Paul A.A. Mill, wasn't it? But just in response to that pocket of
And it's brilliant.
poo.
Yeah.
Poo.
They were all absolutely amazingly treated tech. It was such an incredible experience to actually have everyone just be so true to the script. That's all John as well.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on a terrific performance. You had me in tears at the end. You owe me some tissue.
All right.
I'd just like to say, given your stellar reputation as someone that everyone says they love working with, how did you kind of get into the mindset of a woman that at one point even says, I won't have credit in the film? The height of awkwardness.
I just let out my inner prickly pear. I just, you know, basically was my true self. Difficult, cantankerous. I only hide that for effect, you know, because you get on better. People give you more stuff. So I just let it all hang out. And actually, I've got to tell you, it's such a relief to be rude really, without any repercussions whatsoever. You know, say, can you imagine it? I don't want to go to your fucking press conference because I'm bored with them, or I don't want to come out to your birthday party because I got bored with you years ago. I mean, if you could, just come out with these things, and she did. She said what she meant, she just said it. I mean, I do that sometimes and get into terrible trouble, and probably will now, but that was what was so great.
She has said what we all think.
No, this is lovely.
Hi guys, really love the film, great job. My question is for all the actors. If you had the opportunity to ask the characters you were playing one thing, what would you ask them to get into the mindset of that character and to make sure you play them as correctly as possible?
Oh my God, Bruce, you start. It was really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you repeat what you just asked?
What question would you ask her? If you could ask Margaret, who was suicidal and a bit sad, because she was married to an alcoholic.
Why don't you leave them quicker?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. None of us can answer it.
You next, Tom.
And thus the press conference came to a sorry end. Nothing was said for the rest of the 15 minutes. They sat there thinking. It's good, it's good.
It's a hypothetical, an interesting, fascinating, mind-numbing hypothetical. Wrestling with in ways that actually, it's going to fill me with self-loathing later on this evening. I would have to say, I'm knocking myself. I got nothing.
It's such a brilliant question. Congratulations on that. Let's move on. I'd like to.
Really anxious
How about if we can tell the other person what we would ask?
Yes.
How about that?
How about we were doing fine moving on, man? But I respect the idea, and it's a good idea.
Please, Kelly, write something you can say.
Yeah. We'll come back to you.
Kelly?
We will. We're coming back to this.
We failed.
I refuse to leave this question unanswered.
Okay.
Text you later.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
This question is probably for Emma. You created your own sort of Mary Poppins at some point called Nanny McPhee. So how influenced were you? I mean, how did you know the story behind Mary Poppins the book, and had you already researched that?
No, not at all. No. My husband did point out to me this morning, he said, do you think it's interesting that you created a magical nanny and then you've played someone who's created a magical nanny? Do you suppose that behind every magical nanny is a cantankerous, opinionated old bat? Took me a while to let that sink in. And I thought, oh, maybe there is actually, maybe it is a sort of alter ego, someone you wish you could be. Certainly I wish I could be like that. And I think that with Walt and the mouse and Pam and her nanny, there's certainly, these are characters that have been created out of the soul of that person when the soul was very vulnerable and emergent, as it were. So that's what gives them their power, their staying power. She said that she didn't invent Mary Poppins, that Mary Poppins just arrived, and I think that most writers of genius would say the same thing. Mozart said, my music I didn't write it, it just arrived in me. There's even in the most cantankerous writers, there's a generosity of spirit about where these things come from. And of course they're not going to come unless you sit at the writing table with your pen. That's the discipline. But if you do that, then it's like Field of Dreams, if you sit there, it will come. And sometimes it's in a form that will survive any number of cultural interpretations and reinterpretations. And that's what's so interesting about this as a movie about two cultures coming together and clashing over this one iconic creation.
Gentleman in the second row there, followed by the gentleman in the white sweater and first.
Hi. Question for Tom, but maybe if Emma and Colin could answer, it would be great. So, Mr. Disney was a man that made us all dream, and all of you have a kind of a dream profession, I think, and in a way, I think you should also be dreamers. I'm wondering, when you were beginning your careers, or before that, what kind of dreams were you had before coming into this dream world? If you had, and if it was connected with Walt Disney or not?
I had no dreams at all. I was just trying to, I was just trying to get some other job other than the one I had. That's not unlike what Walt Disney did. When he started drawing, he was drawing out in the disconnected garage from his house in Kansas City, and he just had the art supplies, and he was just banging out stuff that came into his head, hoping that he might be able to sell them for $5 a piece. I relate to that. There's no clue as to where any of this stuff will take you. I was hoping to make a little bit more than nothing. Because I thought that this is just a job that you volunteer for, and if you're good enough at it, they'll ask you to play something else, and maybe they'll make you pay you $50 a week. But this concept of having dreams when you're young and always having your eye on the dream, I could never understand that. I didn't have a single dream in my head. I kind of operated like a communist, I had hey, if I build a decent tractor, maybe I can build another tractor. It's like I didn't even have a 5-year plan. I was just stumbling around.
Tom Hanks, a communist.
Tom Hanks, communist. Thank you very much.
A lot of these meetings obviously were recorded, and indeed, P.L. Travers and Disney were recorded a lot. There's a lot of factual information about everyone involved, about some of these people involved. So, how much creative license can any of you take with the characters, with the story, and indeed with the people who aren't so well documented as well?
John, why don't you? You take. We're movie makers.
Yeah.
You take creative license, don't you, if you're artists? I mean, we're not documentarians, we're movie makers. So you have to, surely. I mean...
Yeah, job one is for it to be entertaining and hopefully moving, and you have all that information about real characters. You have to condense it. You have to find an order for it. I don't think anybody would want to watch a movie of the 39 hours spent in the rehearsal room.
No,
that would be like a Warhol film or something. But I'm sure there were days that were utterly boring in there. So I think when you've got Kelly Marcel to be able to parse through everything and find the stuff that's entertaining and have it somehow congeal in a way where thematically it's true and tonally it's true, that's job one, I think.
And with her, P.L. Travers had this theory later on in her life that women's lives divided into 3 main parts: nymph, mother, and crone. And it's great, you should look her up because it's very interesting and very there's something very true about it. And we wanted to put a part of each part into this incarnation of her, so that rather than me playing someone who was sort of talking like that, which is how she talks with, there's a lot of distress in the voice, and there's a lot of no, that sort of thing going on, because it's very tense when she's in those meetings. That would have driven us all and the audience screaming out into the night. So, including parts from when she was a mother, when she was a nymph, when she was acting, her sexuality, that's creative license, I suppose. You're taking bits and folding them back into this period of time, which after all is not very long to spend with a very complicated character, 2 hours, So I suppose that's creative license as well.
Thank you. Gentleman in the front row, and then the gentleman there on the afterwards. So you first.
Hi everyone. Hi. Can you share your memories of watching Mary Poppins for the first time? What's the big part of your childhood for all the actors?
Yeah, I used to watch it pretty much every Christmas. And so I know it inside out, really. Like, all the songs, album. So yeah, it was a big part of growing up. I haven't watched it much since. We watched it on Colin's house, but I haven't seen it since really. I'm intrigued to see it, see if I see it differently, to enjoy it.
I think it was re-released, and I didn't see it in its first go around. I think I saw it in a re-release, and I was probably taken to it like that. But the Mary Poppins Step in Time, the chimney sweeps dance, I remember I just thought that was like I'd taken speed or something. That was just the most amazing. I didn't know anything about dance, but that was a magical sequence, Step in Time.
I remember that when the smoke turns into a ladder, you know, the smoke turns into steps. Do you remember that? It's just moments you just go as a child. I remember thinking, oh, I wanted that to be possible. So I really wanted that to be possible. And I was so in love with Dick.
Over to me then, is it?
What phase of womanhood does that come?
Possibly the nymph. On that note, I was too busy
we all are in our
I was too busy
special way.
obsessing over everlasting gobstoppers, from the Wonka factory to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Beatles Rolling Stones question: were you a Mary Poppins fella or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory fella? And I was Willy
you were
Wonka and the
younger
Chocolate Factory.
then.
Yeah. I think not that there's any particular perfect time for anyone to see it, but I think Willy Wonka was my Christmas film.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know Roald Dahl hated it, but you know.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah, Stephen King hated The Shining. Yeah. They're very different mediums. I get why a writer might hate.
No, it's good that you've mentioned Stephen King though at this press conference. The Shining, it's great.
Yeah. Where's that butler? Do you think I'll see him
Question for Kelly and Alison, basically, I suppose. You must have gone back to talk to Richard Sherman, I'm sure. You must have done. Just explain very briefly what he contributed.
There's Dick again.
Well, Dick was just a delight.
Oh, come on.
I meant
We
Van
all
Dyke.
like Dick.
Please. Remember the mouse, everyone.
It was amazing. I was just explaining to someone earlier actually that after we met him we did an entirely new part of the script because his mannerisms are enormous. I mean, he's the biggest, jolliest fellow you could ever meet. He's literally like a cartoon character. He's just incredibly wonderful, and meeting him was kind of a beautiful experience. We came in and he was crying because she had ruined his life. I mean, he really was very bitter and twisted about what went on in those rooms with P.L. Travers. And when we went to see him, he was saying to John, Alison and I, crying his eyes out, going, I didn't know that she had that childhood, and now I can forgive her, and now I feel okay. So it's been quite a cathartic experience for Dick. And he played all of the Mary Poppins songs for us, and we all just cried for an hour. Yeah.
No, I mean, it was one of the most joyous things actually, I think, was having Richard and Liz along the experience. To watch two people watching moments from their lives being reconstructed in front of them and weeping and holding each other's hands was just incredibly moving. I mean, really, really wonderful. And Richard was an incredible asset to us right from the start, both because of his enthusiasm, his support, his anecdotes, and what he meant to Disney. His support when we went to Disney was absolutely invaluable because he's a very special Disney person, and the fact that he'd taken us under our wing and he loved what we've done, what we had done, and felt that it conveyed the truth and was credible and should be told.
Yeah, and as an advisor on the film, he was there with us every night, which was really invaluable.
I've got one last question because we have to wrap up in a second. The question is to John. How do you want this film to be viewed as an entertainment, as something that will surprise people, inform people?
Oh gosh.
What do you want?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, you want all the above. I mean, you make a movie. Everybody says you make movies for everybody else, but I mean, ultimately, it's a 1.5 to 2 years of your life. It's a marriage, not a date. You have to make it for yourself first and foremost, and you hope that other people enjoy and see what you saw in it and what you continue to see in it. So I'll just be very happy for people to see the movie that we've all worked so hard on. You know, And hopefully they enjoy it for whatever reasons and whatever people glean from that. Good on you, I hope. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I'd like to keep the ice right half an hour and then after